Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Broken Beautiful Me. I am your host, Kelly Buckley, and today I am so honored to have Kevin Monroe. He is the preeminent expert on the transformative power of gratitude in the workplace. And if you've been following me, you know that gratitude is big on my list.
Mm.
So, as a workplace gratitude consultant, he helps organizations struggling with top talent departures, employee disengagement, experience renewed motivation, retention, and performance by utilizing his proprietary framework and assessments. He's a graduate of Gonzaga University with a Master of Arts in Organizational Leadership. He has an undergraduate degree in theology from Mercer University. He is a fellow with Creating the Future and the Colson Center. And he lives in Woodstock, Georgia, where he enjoys being a husband, father, grandfather, friend, creator, and gratitude guide, which I love.
Mm.
So, welcome to the show, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Oh, Kelly, thank you. Thank you. And you that are joining us, I want to say thank you. Kelly, I realize, there are well over 1 million plus podcasts in the world. So the fact that you who are joining us chose to join us, join this podcast, join Kelly on her journey, join us for this conversation, it just says something about you. And I don't take that for granted. So thank you for joining us today.
Oh, that's great. So, I want to start with just a little bit of background for you. It's one thing to read a bio, but I like to have our listeners understand, maybe people who haven't,
Hmm.
been exposed to your work. Um, just give us a little bit about the personal journey and experiences and wisdom that brought you to this critical work.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing, Kelly. I um uh, so our questions are not planned today. I love organic, unscripted conversation.
Mhm.
And and I'm thinking about the title of your show, and when you ask about my journey, well, Kelly, it started in a puddle of brokenness, right? There was that's why I'm laughing. It's like, wow, you asked this. In one sense, right? I grew up in a small town in Perry, Georgia, at a
Mhm.
time when people of my generation were taught to say, please, thank you, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. So if you'd ask me any point in my life, are you grateful? I would have said, well, of course I am. Because anytime anybody sticks anything in my direction, I take it and I go, thank you, right? Because I was taught to say thank you. And for the first 50 something years of my life, I equated gratitude and thankfulness. I just thought they were synonyms.
Mm.
The last 8 years, I've discovered they're not, right? And it was this one morning. I am an early riser without an alarm clock, and I don't say that. It's just how I'm wired. As a matter of fact, today I've been up since 3:15, right?
I've been
Uh,
up since 4. I love
yeah,
early mornings.
yeah. And I was so excited about our conversation. And there was another project I was working on, but April 17th, 2018. Yeah, April 17th, 2018. I couldn't get out of bed. I woke up several times that morning, and I'd turn over, I'd look at the clock, and there's 5 o'clock, there's 5:30, there's 5:45, there's 5:47. It's sometimes it seemed like a lot of time had passed, and it's just 2 minutes later. Probably around 7:45 or so, I finally just peeled myself out of bed. Right? There is no joy, there is no excitement, there's no enthusiasm. I was just at a point of despair, and I've had a couple of bouts of depression in my adult life, and I recognize the signs, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I am on the slippery slope, and if something doesn't change, who knows how deep this will go, and who knows how long it will last." Now I am a person, I take it you probably are too, but loving early mornings. I have morning rhythms, rituals, routines that I do every morning. That
Mhm.
morning, I didn't feel like doing any of it, but out of a routine and out of that rhythm, I grabbed my journal, because, and it's kind of fun. I can say 744 days before, I'd had a mentor I'd reconnected with, a guy I'd lost contact with for 12, 14 years. He had invited me in 2016 sometime to, he said to me, he said, "Kevin, would you join me in praying 15 minutes a day?" And I looked at him, I was embarrassed. I'm like, well, Doug, I haven't prayed 15 minutes in a year, right? I mean, I don't know. You're asking a lot. 15 minutes in a day? And he said, "I'm not talking about, I'm just talking about sitting down, um, with, in my faith tradition, the Bible and a journal, and just see if God has something to speak to you or lay on your heart." Well, that morning, Kelly, there's nothing I feel like praying. There's just nothing, but I have my journal, and I finally just write out of my brokenness, out of my emptiness, Holy Spirit, spark, you are the creative spark of the universe, spark creativity in me. And I'm in this, what I would call, liminal space, in and out of drowsiness, probably nodded off a few times, right? Because I just felt nothing. And 45 minutes later, I sit up erect with this powerful idea that's 85, 90% fully formed. Launch a 13-week, 90-day journey and call it the extraordinary experiment. And it was 13 weeks, and they stair stepped up. Each week got a little more of a challenge, but they were called a challenge. It started with week 1, just inviting people to notice what's around you, be aware of your surroundings, right? Rather than so immersed in your digital device or newspaper or magazine if you commuted to work. Week 6, we had called the gratitude challenge. So we'd labeled each of these weeks. And on Monday, we would drop a video explaining what we're inviting people to that week. And when we went to uh, explain gratitude, it was kind of like, well, that's the first time that I remember consciously trying to uh, understand the difference. Are we inviting people to be thankful? Are we inviting people to be grateful? What's the difference? And that started me on a journey. And as we were talking beforehand, the other part of this, I didn't set out to do gratitude. I set out to escape a scarcity mindset that had stayed with me from my youth. Right? I grew up
Mhm.
in a loving family, but a family that we didn't have a lot, but I didn't know we didn't have a lot because we had love, so we had everything we needed, right? But there was always this scare, both of my parents grew up in the Depression, and
Yeah.
that to them. So there was this scarcity mindset, and just never believing we had enough or would have enough. And I wanted to break that in my life. And I had read a book that compared and contrasted the scarcity loop and the abundance loop. And that's when I saw that gratitude was the key or the gateway to leaving scarcity and embracing abundance. So I started leaning into that, but it all started with this really dark day. And fortunately, that time, Kelly, because of the decisions I made and the action I took, I did not stay in despair. Right? There was something to do, and so here's, if you find yourself in despair, and I am no stranger to despair, right? It still comes. Um, Winston Churchill called it the black dog, right? He was constantly plagued
Yes.
by black dog of depression. It was never
Mhm.
he said, and Winston Churchill actually said traveled a lot by ship. He never got too close to the rail because of fear that the black dog might push him over, right? I mean, that he might,
Really?
yeah, yeah, I mean, you can read Winston Churchill's, biographies and you that it's there, it's like, wow. So, but we have agency as humans. We have agency. We can do something that changes our situation. And so when we take action, right? Any kind of idea. So that day, I had this idea. We took action on it. We announced this as a journey the next day. We in today's world, you can spin up what's called a landing page to announce it pretty quickly. So I worked with a friend. We spun up a landing page. We had 273 people that ultimately signed up for this extraordinary experiment. And 3 weeks later, we launched it. Right. So that's what got me on this journey. I'll fast forward a year later, June of 2019 is when things went to a whole nother level. Uh, Early that morning, June 17th, 2019, I had this idea to launch or to host a gratitude challenge, to do something to grow gratitude and see if people would join. And I thought we would host one 10-day gratitude challenge. And we announced that, no planning. You and I were kinda talking about it was just it was an inspired idea that was built on a podcast schedule without really looking at the calendar. Episode 100 of the podcast I hosted at that time aired on July 2nd. So on July 2nd, we announced that on July 8th, the following Monday, we're launching a gratitude challenge because we wanted to do it in tandem with episode 101, right? It was just, and then we realized, oh gosh, we're trying to recruit people on the week of July 4th.
Yeah.
So we struggled like crazy to get 100 people. And then on Saturday, July 6th, a friend of mine caught wind of this and asked, could he share it? And he did. And 194 of his friends joined us. So we launched this with 294 people rather than 100. That Kelly, the next day we had 100 people on a waiting list because we ran it as a closed cohort. So
Yeah.
we again 3 weeks later with 349 people. I ended up hosting 22 sessions of this 10-day gratitude challenge. We had 2,800 unique people join because a lot of people join multiple times from 73 countries of the world.
That's
And in that journey, Kelly, I became the gratitude guy.
That is so wonderful. I mean, people respond to that, I think that's the thing that the message that you received is that, wow, I'm putting this out there and the response back is, yes, we were searching for that. We need to have some sort of prompt that will put us in that mind space.
Oh,
It's
now,
difficult.
Kelly, let me tell you, let me oh, so I'm a guy that had had what I would have called a gratitude practice for years because
Mhm.
you're a mentor of mine. And I think the way Ken said it was think of three things you're thankful for. But again, I'm a guy that I equated thankfulness with gratitude for a long period of time. So but he said before your feet hit the floor in the morning when you get out of bed, think of three things you're thankful for. So sadly, if I'm honest, for about 10 years, I said the same 3 things almost every day. I'm thankful for my wife, our kids, our home. My wife, our kids, our job, right? And if somebody would say, "Gosh, Kevin, can't you be more specific?" I would like, "Okay, Gwen, Josh, Lindsay," right? I mean, and so when we were launching this 10-day gratitude challenge, we wanted to do something different rather than simply ask people, "Hey, what are you grateful for today? List 3 things." Next day, "What are 3 things you're grateful for today?" The next day, "What," right? We wanted to mix it up. We wanted to raise the bar on, how we express gratitude. So on the idea to host a challenge was on Tuesday, June 17th. Tuesday morning, June 19th, I mean, Wednesday morning, I have this idea. There's an artist who will join and create artwork for the gratitude challenge. I'm like, gosh, that's interesting, but I don't know any artist. The idea would not leave. So finally, 7:33 that morning, and I know that exact time because I have a timestamp of the tweet. I posted a tweet. Just curious. Any artist willing to contribute artwork for a gratitude challenge? And I just posted it on Twitter, let it go, forgot all about it. 8 hours later, a friend of mine in the UK retweets it and tags 3 people in the post. And, uh, all 3 respond. The first 2 couldn't. The third said, "Well, I'm not really an artist, but count me in." And she is an amazing artist, and she now knows she's an artist. So I said, she said, "What do you need?" And I said, "Well, we're doing a 10-day challenge." She said, "Well, what if I create 11 images? One for the overall challenge and one for each day." So I'll show you a couple of the images because we had so much fun with these. Um, Things that we would do to inspire gratitude in a fresh, different kind of way. Um, I'm we ended up a year and a half later, we created a card deck out of this, right? But at first, these were just sketches. So this is the Beauty of Nature challenge. And we would ask people, what is something about the beauty of nature that sparks gratitude in your life? Post a picture. And Kelly,
Yeah.
it's amazing all of a sudden when people started posting pictures of um, some I remember, right? The cliffs of Wales, or like, wow, look at this. A friend in Australia posted something. Um, a lady from Oregon posted a picture being on the ocean in Oregon with their pet llama at the beach camping. Okay, first off, I didn't know people had pet llamas. And if you had a pet llama, I didn't know you took it on the family camping trip with you, you
That's
know?
that's kinda new for me too. I that's but great.
Another one was the superstar of your day, right? Look back, think back yesterday. Who showed up as a superstar? Maybe it was a stranger. Maybe it was the cashier at the grocery store, right? Whoever it was, maybe you don't even know their name. But if there's a superstar, talk about them. And if you have the opportunity to thank them, send them a note. Tell them you appreciate them because most people have no idea that what they did had such an amazing impact on your life. One more
That
we did is we called it the Sesame Street Challenge,
Yep.
ABCs, building, alphabet blocks, and just said, "Pick a letter of the alphabet. How many things can you come up to be grateful for that start with the letter Q?" Or and then we had a married couple from, Sweden, and they took turns recording a video. Started with A and went through Z and took turns back and forth. Right? It's just creative ways to express gratitude that was so much different than just, hey, three things you're grateful for today, three things, rinse and repeat tomorrow. So that was fun, right? To to realize there's so many different ways we can inspire and invite gratitude.
Well, and it sounds like, instead of just requesting that people look for those things, that you gave prompts that turned into action. So gratitude in action. So you are moving out within your existence, within your world, and you're actively seeking out things, which then makes you notice things that you probably aren't paying attention to, right? So when you go out in nature, my husband laughs at me because I love to mow the lawn. We have this little ride-on mower. We're out in the country, and I keep telling him I'm going to get it bedazzled. So, but I love it because I get to drive around. And he said, "You stop more than you mow," because I have my camera. I'm listening to my podcasts on
Mhm.
my headphones as I'm driving my mower. And I stop because I'm like, "Oh, look at that flower. I have to take a picture of that. That's so beautiful. Oh, look at that. Or look at this." And I find all of these things. And that's one of the things that I talked about with my group last week was a lot of people say, "Oh, you have to mow the lawn?" And my response is, "I get to mow the lawn. I get to
Get
because
Kelly,
it's a
that's
gift."
notice is one of the single biggest shifts when we embrace gratitude. We move from have to get to.
Yeah, yeah. And it's life-changing. And I as I speak to people about that, when you start realizing that mowing the lawn or going for a walk, that there and I mean it requires a little bit of perspective from you as well to kind of look around and say, not everybody has the same unique
Mm.
opportunities and possibilities in their life. And so if I am presented with that, I really need to give thanks, you know? I think that's a shift.
So, okay, you just dropped like 5 points. But I
We're having a little trouble with your mic there, Kevin. I just if you could come a little Yeah,
Or
I think oh, there you are. You're back.
okay. Um, every once in a while, I have a noise shuts off. I don't know. So, you said action. There were several words you said that sparked things for me. One of those was action. One of those was noticing. But let's talk about action for a moment. I saw a post a friend of mine wrote that was inspired by something a mutual friend of ours had posted that he saw on his walk. Well, the moment I see this, and this is an hour ago, hour and a half ago, Kelly, I'm reminded of brother David Stendal Rast, who has one of the most amazing TED Talks on gratitude. Um, he talks about look up, look at the sky. We don't spend enough time looking at the sky. And anytime you look at the sky, there's something to notice, right? It's always different. So I stopped right then. I looked up, I took a picture and I posted it. And I said, "Hey, who else will post a picture of what you see when you look up today?" Now, right before I hit join you, I noticed a friend of mine in Austria posted this most amazing picture of a mountaintop he happened to be on, right? And you just see the sky, the mountains, the valley, and how it sparks gratitude is what David Stendal Rast was saying. Right? Just
Mhm.
sky. So, hey, if you're listening sometime today, whenever it is that you're listening this, go outside, look up. Do what Kelly did, which take a picture of the flower, take a picture of the sky, share it with us. I'm serious about that. Let's see how much gratitude we can spark and spread because gratitude does lead to action. Now, Kelly, you said so. I got to share this. I use this simple magnet or simple triangle. This one happens to be a magnet. Pause, notice, express. Pause, notice.
Mm, love that.
How I realized, I mean, I'm a slow learner, I jokingly say. I probably answered this question 50 times, different people, before I realized, gosh, I say basically the same thing every time when people say, "How can I be more grateful?" When people ask, "What can I do to grow gratitude?" or "How can I be more grateful?" Well, it's like, it's pause. It all starts with pausing because most of us live such fast-paced, such busy lives that we don't pause. So when you pause, then what do? You're mowing the lawn and you pause and then you notice something.
Yes.
And that noticing, it captures your attention. It activates your imagination. And then you take a picture or you just express gratitude for it, or you write a note, or you thank someone, right? If it's a person that does something, you just take an extra moment and go, "Oh my gosh." So I have a friend, she'll listen to this. Um, she's just an amazing human. Her name's Vicky, lives in New Jersey, right outside of New York, does a lot of work in New York City. And she'll be at the Starbucks or a coffee shop and she'll just ask the barista, "Hey, did you make my coffee with love today?" And Kelly, 95% of the time, the baristas say, "Yes, yes, I did."
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then that provides Vicky this, well, thank you, right? I know it's going to taste better. I mean, and I'll point out here. So to me, that is the difference between thankful and grateful. It is real
Mhm.
easy for expressing thanks, saying thanks to be purely transactional, right? The barista sticks a cup of coffee in your direction. You may be glued to your phone looking at something, not even connecting with the barista as a human. Reach out, collect the coffee, and say, "Thanks," and go on. Or you can take that as a moment and look the barista in the eye and see them as a human,
Right.
value them as a human, and speak some word of affirmation or gratitude that lands in their heart, right? Because it's like, I see you, I value you, and I appreciate you. So when we say I'm grateful for you, we're not just saying thank you. We're saying all of that.
Yeah.
I see you, I value you, I appreciate you. And every person on the planet has an innate desire to be seen, to feel seen, heard, valued, and appreciated.
Exactly. And I mean, when you think about, like, I Gallup did a poll about the epidemic of loneliness, not only in our country, but in the world. And we are more connected than ever, but we feel more disconnected.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's so important, like you said, to make a person feel seen. But just think about the end result of that interaction. So you look at someone and you tell them that they are seen, that they're valued, that their work is appreciated. Because let's face it now, when you go in for that coffee, you need it. You need it. You're relying on that person to get you that coffee so that
Yeah,
you're going to make it through that first meeting that morning. You know what I mean? If so
exactly.
so express that appreciation, but then the secondary piece of it that I think that we have lost sight of is when you turn around and you're walking out of that store and you've just taken a moment to lift someone else. What are you feeling in your own gut? What are you feeling in your own heart? It reciprocates and comes right back to you. It ripples right back into your own life when you show people they matter. You start to view yourself in a different way. Would you
It
agree with that?
You can't not. You
Yeah.
just can't, right? If you do this, and this is one of those things, uh, gosh, we should. So this is the first time I've met Kelly, right? So Kelly is now one of my new BFFs. That I can tell. Um,
Yes.
we ought to explore some things to do together with some people and invite people into this. We just did something in the month of July that we declared July Don't Wait to Thank. And we were inviting and inspiring as many people as we could to say thank you to at least one person every day for the month of July. Now, we're going to make this an evergreen program that any community can do anytime they want. And we're building a toolkit to help communities, groups launch, whether it's a week long or month long blitz of expressing gratitude and appreciation. Kelly, it's so amazing when people do this, right? When people and the wave, there's the ripple effect, there's the boomerang effect, right? Because quite often in that, I've heard so many stories. We launched something a little over 2 years ago, and I'm grateful for you as a movement. And it's the biggest benefit to me is I've just been the curator of stories from around the world of what happens when
Yes.
somebody has that moment. What you just said, um, 2 weeks ago today, maybe 3 weeks ago today. Um, my dear friend Gina Anderson, I had commented on something and she comments on it on a LinkedIn post, and then all of a sudden I'm sending her a text, and then she just calls me, and I was able to answer the call, and we have this amazing conversation, and she's telling me of an encounter she had that morning, early that morning, 3:30 in the morning, at the hotel she was at in Iowa, and then her flight got canceled. She was up for an early departure, and she contacts the front desk and asks, "Can I, get the room for another day? I'm need to stay." The front desk clerk was amazing. And then a couple of hours later, like 5:30 in the morning, Gina goes down for coffee, and the coffee shop isn't open yet. And she's going to ask the same clerk that had helped her earlier about this, but she has to hear the exchange she's having with a very rude guest who just comes unglued on this clerk and talks to them in a very inhumane fashion
Mhm.
for something that was not the clerk's responsibility. Or and you know how that happens. Frontline service workers get
Oh,
dumped on all the time, and that's where this kind of action, okay, that's a theme word, action. When you express gratitude to someone, a couple of things happen. So anyway, Gina then goes up and she owns her own company, employs a lot of people. She goes, "Gosh, I want to affirm you for the way you dealt with that jerk."
yeah.
And I'd be honored to have somebody like you working in our company because the way you respond, building this person up. Gina asked about coffee, and she goes, "Gosh, the coffee shop doesn't open for another hour." And she goes, "But let me get you a cup." So she gets Gina a cup.
Yeah.
Won't charge her for the cup, right? Gina goes up to her room, she goes, "What I just witnessed, I need to express gratitude." So she writes a note to this clerk, and she takes a gift. Gina always carries little gifts with her, takes a gift, goes down and gives it to the woman. Now, I don't know how old the woman was. I'm guessing she was mid-40s to 50s.
Mhm.
And Kelly, I'm taking time with the story because I've heard this story 100 times in some variation of it. And it moves me to tears every time I hear it. When Gina shares, and Gina's still emotional. I'm crying when Gina's telling me this. She shares this, and the woman looks at her and goes, "What? No one, no one has ever told me they're grateful for me.
Oh my god.
No one has ever expressed gratitude." And when we do that, right, it's not what we were just saying, it's not expressing gratitude, it's all of that. It's seeing the person, it's communicating care, kindness, compassion, value, dignity, and it moves people.
It
It moves,
does.
and you and I, and you watching, you listening, we have that opportunity multiple times a day if we'll pause and notice, right, that there's this moment happening. And maybe this person's having a really bad day. Now, the research tells us this. We know this. When we express gratitude, there are three audiences impacted. And you already talked about the first one. The person that expressed gratitude, they're walking out of the coffee shop and they just express gratitude, but they're feeling good.
Yes.
Because when you express gratitude, it does things. It releases neurons and neurotransmitters in your brain and in your body, and hormones are flooding your body, and you feel good. The person to whom you expressed gratitude feels good.
Yep.
And the third is anybody who happens to witness the exchange.
Yes. I love that.
And research shows this. Research, I think it's from, USC, and I think it's written up in the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley. But there are studies around this. But I have anecdotes as well. A lady in the grocery store, she has a moment and gives the cashier an "I'm grateful for you" card, writes a note. The cashier puts it in her name badge, right? The next time she's there, she sees it still tucked in her name badge. But the person in front of her had been a little short with the clerk, right? And then she's kind to the cashier. Well, the person right behind them, they've witnessed this too.
Yes.
What are the chances they're going to be kind or cruel when they've just witnessed you being kind and grateful, right?
Exactly.
They may not be grateful, but I promise you they will be less cruel than they would have been. And
Yeah.
here's another anecdote. One I didn't even know I had on this shirt. Wasn't aware of this shirt I was wearing. I was wearing a shirt, it said, "Humankind be both." And my wife and I are walking into the restaurant, and I had opened the door for this gentleman and his family to go in, and all of a sudden, he looked, and he's holding the door for me, goes, "No, you go, you go." And I'm like, "Well, thank you." He says, I just saw your shirt. I can't not hold the door for you, right?" And I'm like, I and I look, right, there's that message. He saw a message on a T-shirt, and it reminded him, "Oh, I want to be kind." Right? So
That's beautiful.
we have that power by our example, by us connecting with somebody. It inspires someone else to express gratitude, or the person that's received gratitude, maybe when they go home that night, they're expressing gratitude to people in their circles, right? It's the ripple effect. So it's amazing the power we have.
And it truly, like, from the science perspective that you brought up, it truly doesn't take long for your neural pathways to change once you decide to make this a practice, a daily practice. But you have to decide to take that turn. So if you are the person who received the gratitude, you say, okay, well, I'm going to pass that on. I'm going to pay that forward. If you're the person that's giving the gratitude, okay, I'm going to keep that up. That's working. And if you're the person behind that grateful person in line, you are inspiring that person to then start their own practice. And that's the way we really change the world, right? It happens one person at a time. The one of the way that I express gratitude is I call it my one little thing, my one little things for the day. And so I said, I always ask, what's your one little thing for today? I mean, some days it's peach yogurt. Some days it's a letter from a friend. Some days, it depends. But every time that I do it, I'm building my practice. It's becoming commonplace for me. So years later, I look around my life and it's just natural for me now to look for what's right rather than what's wrong.
So
And
Kelly,
okay, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, you go ahead.
I came from a background where, I come from a healthcare background, and I also was worked with strategic initiatives and in healthcare leadership, and so a big part of what I did in my job was to look for things that could potentially go wrong. I mean, that was in my job description, was to look at things that could potentially go wrong and find plan A, B, C, and D. And it took training for me not to carry that home. I had to work at not carrying that mindset home and saying, looking around my life and saying, okay, that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong, and start looking at what was right. And so it is when we say living a grateful life, we're not just saying you wake up one day and I'm going to live this grateful life. We're saying you have to wake up one day and say, I am going to practice this daily. And that's how my grateful life will arrive.
It's a
That's how
journey.
I'm gonna discover or rediscover, because the blessings are still all around you, whether you notice them or not.
Oh gosh. So many things. One, going back to this pause, notice, express, somebody said to me, Kevin, I think you've become a better noticer on this journey. And I'm like, absolutely. And so January 1st of this year, it's 2024 when we're recording this. So January 1st, a friend of mine, Marielle, in the Philippines, posted that she was starting her second full year of expressing gratitude every single day, that she had just finished 1 year of doing this. And I said, oh, I've got a question for you, Marielle. What what after doing this for a year, what do you notice? What's your big learning from doing this for a year? I notice how many more things there are to be grateful for,
Ah, that
right?
is
Because it's what you're
beautiful.
looking for. We start looking for it. We have now developed, we're building that muscle and we're starting to notice where I know people that when they start, it's like, I mean, really, you want me to think of three things to be grateful? I got one. Yeah, I'm serious. I've known people that have struggled. I can come up with one.
Mhm.
Do this, you do this, you keep doing this, and then all of a sudden, 366 days later, Mario goes, I keep right. There's so many things because now all of a sudden, one of the cards I didn't share with you, but we talked about coffee earlier. What if you just stop for a moment and you're drinking a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and you think about how many people were involved in making that cup of tea or cup of coffee possible for you to enjoy now.
Right.
Going all the way back to the farmer who planted the coffee tree or bean, right? And harvested, took care of those, harvested the beans, and then dried the beans and packed the beans, shipped the beans, roasted the beans, ground the beans, made the coffee, made the pot that brewed the coffee, the cup I mean, hundreds of people are involved in the simple act of us having a cup of coffee. How many people touch that along the way to make that possible? So in modern life, if we start thinking about all of the people that made all of the technology possible that you and I can join on this podcast today. It's crazy, Kelly. I mean,
It
there's
is.
thousands of people that were involved in processes that made this one episode possible. So you struggle to be just pick an item. So one time somebody did this and they're like, I was at a concert and I started thinking about all of the people that had a role to make our evening of enjoying music possible.
Mm, yes.
We can pick anything, right? Anything can be that catalyst. Um, so build that muscle. Oh, there was something else. I want to come back to this. So you were trained to find defects and
I was, yeah.
prevent defects. So have you ever noticed, right? This is something for those of you that may be thinking, well, what's the impact of this? I get this personally, but can this really matter in my work? So, Kelly, would you agree that, and I know you do because you already said it, that the questions we ask determine the answers we find?
Yes.
If we're asking what's wrong here or what can go wrong here, we see everything, right? And you were working to not carry that home because you realized the skill you had developed to be successful at work would not lead to a happy life at home, right?
No, it would
So
not.
what happens then if we take this gratitude we've started building personally and we take it into the workplace? And if you are a leader in an organization, what if you start your conversations, even if they're just one-on-one conversations, you start your conversations with appreciation for the person. You're leading a team meeting and you start the meeting with a question, what do we have to celebrate? Rather, because most meetings in most companies in the world today start with what's the problem we need to address now.
Yes.
And if you start by focusing on the problems are going to grow. And if you start by celebrating the successes, you're going to realize there's more success to celebrate. And there's greater energy to then address the problems when you get around to addressing the problem. So the questions we ask determine the answers we find and the energy we create. So you can take this very discipline that we're talking about and bring it into the workplace and start infusing gratitude into your conversations, into your correspondence, into your meetings, into your presentations, and you will experience a shift, which is another word you mentioned, right? We can use gratitude to architect a shift.
That is so true. And I mean, I think in management books, it talks about when you're presenting something difficult, or when you're doing kind of one of your employees has a learning experience, then maybe starting off talking about strengths is a good way to open the door to a more meaningful conversation. Um, and I agree that in the workplace we tend, because of time crunch and everything happens so quickly these days, like news cycles shift in a matter of hours, and it's the same way with the pressures that I think we put on ourselves in a professional setting, is that we just have to get things done, so we don't have time to talk about the fluff of gratitude. And I say that in quotations because people have responded to me when I talk about gratitude, especially in the workplace, as we don't have time. but well, so what do you have time for? Do you have time for worrying about employee retention? Because gratitude will help you with that. Do you have time to think about staff morale? Because gratitude will help you with that. Do you have time to worry about where you're going to get those applicants for these jobs, because you have this reputation of this workplace that doesn't have time to take care of their employees? So you do always have time for gratitude because it doesn't take long.
Well, that's what I wanted to piggyback on and say. That's the amazing part. With when people go, "I don't have time for this," I'm like, how much time do you think this takes? I mean, we're not talking about every single time stopping and writing a note or a letter, right? It's not that. The, uh, what I've the way I approach this in the workplace is talk about developing a moment mentality,
Yes,
right? And when you see an amazing moment happening, and amazing moments happen in workplaces every single day. Somebody does something that's relatively ordinary task, and they do it with such finesse or flair or fervor that that ordinary task is suddenly an extraordinary activity because of the way they approached it. Well, that's a moment. Well, we can either miss those moments or we just minimize them. Oh, gosh, she's always amazing like that, right? Kelly, she just always does that. Or we could just seize the moment and magnify that and go, "Oh my gosh, Kelly, I saw what you did. That was amazing. Thank you for doing that." Now, you might write a note later. You might even, we use these little impact cards, is what we call them. It's a
mhm,
business says, "I'm grateful for you" on the front. People carry these and they just write a note to the barista, write a note to somebody and just go, "I saw what you did. That was amazing." But that seals that moment,
it
right? So
does.
you see the moment, you seize the moment, you seal the moment. But it comes from having a moment mentality, and it only takes a moment. But most of us just we live again because we don't pause, we don't notice, so we never get to express because we're life's a blur.
That's so true. So I wanna talk a little bit now, so let's go from the boardroom to the living room.
Okay.
So I primarily work with bereaved parents,
Mm,
and, there is such a feeling of groundlessness in those early days of grief, and I will tell you from my own personal experience, looking for one little thing,
mm,
the concept of that, of going and saying, "I am looking for one little thing today to be thankful for," that for me came from a place in my broken heart where I wasn't sure if there was gonna be one little thing. When I
mm.
started off, I was so broken. I wasn't sure if I was gonna find one little thing, so I didn't wanna put too much pressure on me. I didn't wanna go to the 3 things, Kevin, because I didn't know if I was gonna be able to
Exactly.
find. So I said, "Okay, I'm just gonna go for one little thing." And I will tell you that early in that journey of just sadness and despair, that many days here are my one little things, I'll tell you. One little thing that my broken heart continues to beat.
Mm,
That I have a 12-year-old son who looks at me hoping for a happy life, and I am going to give that to him. You know, come hell or high water, I'm gonna make this happen. Today, I am grateful that I had the courage to walk to the mailbox. I mean, those are real things
those are
that
real
that were and so I want to really solidify for people, you don't have to be skipping down the road happy as a clam to have a gratitude practice. I found my most the deepest and most authentic gratitude practice for me started when I was at the lowest point in my life.
so Kelly, gosh, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for opening this. And I'm thinking of a friend named Cindy who I met last year, and we met in a group. We had some conversations, and she is a parent who lost a child. And she said to me, "Kevin, I used to be very positive. I was upbeat. I was the most grateful person people knew. And then this happened, and it had been 3, 4, 5 years." And she goes, I just don't think I'll ever get there again." And we had a couple of conversations, and Kelly, I remember, I'm like, "Gosh, she was on this quest of one little thing and finding this little thing and going a little further the next day or doing a little more, right? And so I have a friend, Chester, in the pandemic, his company launched a hashtag that was called Find Your Gratitude. And we started doing work together around that in sessions to help people find it. Because, right, there are times when it's abundant. You just
Yep.
walk out, oh gosh, there's so many things to be grateful for. Life is good. And then there are other times it's hard to find one thing. I get it.
Right.
I know those days, Kelly.
Mhm.
And when I said to Cindy, I said, Can I ask you something? I mean, I just think this is really important. What if being grateful from this point forward looks completely different to what you thought being grateful looked like? I said, because I don't sense that you're ungrateful. I don't sense any sense of entitlement in your life. I just think you think to be grateful means you have to be upbeat, positive, and perky like you used to be.
Right.
And she's like, "Oh my gosh." Right? It's like, "Thank you." Right? Because
Yeah.
she just thought she had in her mind being grateful means
Right. And I
being
think
upbeat, perky, and positive. It doesn't.
it doesn't. And I think, I always say too, when we talk about especially suffering, and people talk a lot about alleviating the suffering through mindfulness.
Mhm.
And so this is what I say about one little thing. So finding one little thing, looking for your one little thing, that's gratitude in action, right?
Mhm.
It cannot change the pain of your suffering, but it can alleviate some of the suffering that you feel. And when you are in action, seeking out gratitude, seeking out something, you're looking around your life for something to be thankful for on that day. You're not looking back at the regrets of the past.
Mm,
You are not looking forward with the worries of the future. You are right here. You are right now, and you are safe and okay. And you are mindful. So when people talk about mindfulness, some people get caught up in it and they're like, what is this mindfulness? This whole like everybody's talking about being mindful. It's being present in those circumstances. And
it is.
sometimes the biggest alleviator of pain in your life is just grounding yourself in that present moment. And what better way to do it
Mm,
than gratitude?
yeah, what better way? Okay, 2 things from that. 1, um, you just almost quoted verbatim my favorite gratitude quote, which is a lock screen on my phone, comes from Ann Voskamp. "No amount of regret changes the past. No amount of anxiety changes the future. Any amount of gratitude changes the present.
Oh, I love that.
No amount of regret changes the past. If you're grieving now, no amount of regret's going to change that. There's no going back and undoing any of that, and no amount of anxiety is going to change the things you're worried about. But in this moment, if you can find one little thing, right?
Mhm.
And the one little thing may be, gosh, you're still alive. And I
Right.
think of something a friend of mine, anonymous, she didn't know who it was from, but she tweeted it to me years ago, and it's just stuck in my heart. As long as you have a pulse, you have a purpose.
Yes.
Right? You're alive today, there's still hope, right? There's still hope. There's an opportunity to move forward. There's an opportunity to find, redemption. There's an opportunity to find grace right through this really hurtful hardship that you're going through. So no amount of regret changes the past, no amount of anxiety changes the future. Any amount of gratitude changes the present and being present, right? It's um, the mindfulness thing. Yeah. Oh, the other one you said. One day, I heard myself say this. Do you ever have these experiences, Kelly? Somebody asks you something, you're in a conversation, you say something out loud, and you hear yourself say that, and you go, "I didn't know I knew that." Right? I mean, it's like,
Every day, Kevin,
yeah,
every day.
yeah. I mean, it happens. So one day we're in a conversation, and I said, "Well, gratitude isn't a cure-all, but it's one powerful cope-all."
Yes.
And there's so many people that teach gratitude. Oh, if you'll just be grateful. It's like, no, it doesn't alleviate all your problems. A couple of years ago, I was hosting a group conversation and I asked this question. I asked, what benefit of gratitude are you enjoying most now? And
Mm.
I still remember the words when they popped up on the screen because it was an interactive tool people could post on. It lessens the overwhelm.
Yes, I love that.
Yes, right? It doesn't make things go away. It doesn't make it's not this panacea. But if being grateful today lessens the overwhelm you're feeling in this moment, gratitude is a good thing in your life.
Oh, Kevin, I think I could talk to you for another 10 hours. I know you don't have time for that, but this
Uh,
has just been so wonderful to chat with you about gratitude. You're going to have to come back again because
Absolutely. I'd love to.
this conversation is far from over. There's so much more I would love to explore
Mm.
with you because I feel like sometimes that there are people out there who just close their minds to a gratitude practice because they just think it's very superficial. When in fact, like you said, it lessens the overwhelm. And we all feel that overwhelm these days. I mean, it's hard not to, unless
Yeah,
you're, on an island by yourself. It's hard not to feel overwhelmed with the world sometimes. And gratitude can ground you in the moment
yeah,
and
yeah.
remind you that no matter what your circumstance, no matter what's swirling around, that you're okay. You're more than okay. You have more than enough. Kevin,
Thank
thank you so much. So before we end this beautiful
you.
interview, I just want you to tell our listeners how they can find you, and if you have anything you want to just give a plug for, I would love to hear it.
Okay. Um, KevinDMonroe.com is our website. I mentioned LinkedIn a couple times. If you're on LinkedIn, look me up. I am obviously I was on LinkedIn early enough that I'm just Kevin Monroe there. You can find me. No numbers after my name or anything. LinkedIn, .com/n/ Kevin Monroe. And I'll offer this, Kelly. We created something around this since I talked about pause, notice, express. We created something, a 5-day um, beginner's guide to growing gratitude is what it's called now. We used to call it a fast start, but it's just the beginner's guide to growing gratitude. And it's whether you're beginning for the first time or you're wanting to begin a new season of gratitude. It walks you through. It's a free e-course that drips 5 days and
Yep.
just teaches this pause, notice, express framework and helps you develop that understanding and get in a rhythm of pausing, noticing, and expressing. So, and you can get that at letsgrowgratitude.com. Letsgrowgratitude.com takes you right there, free e-course you can participate in.
That is so wonderful. Kevin, thank you for your important work. I encourage everybody to go to Kevin's website. It's fantastic. And some of the tools that you have there they're just really inspiring and just serve as a great reminder for people. And I think that's the thing is that you are not just throwing out, you should have a gratitude practice. You're showing them how to put that in action. And I couldn't applaud you any louder. So yay for you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for hosting this conversation. And again, I'll just say, who are listening to us, watching, listening, thank you for joining. And if you're dealing with grief, gosh, my heart goes out to you. Um, we all experience hurt and heartache in life, and gratitude doesn't make it go away, but gratitude does help us get through each day, right? Finding the one little
Mhm.
thing, gratitude will help you get through. It won't help you get over. It will help you get through the grief.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Thank
And
you,
thank
Cal.
you to you all. We'll talk to you on the next episode.